Today is your third anniversary. How has the book done?
Well, it's done well. In fact, I did I finally was able to do the audiobook version of it last year. It still has a life of its own, even 3 years later.
How do you see the landscape of travel?
I'm getting fees that I got paid more than 20 years ago. I think having a niche isn't be all and end all, but I've personally found it extremely useful.
Hello, welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. On this edition of my podcast, I'm very happy to bring on an award-winning freelance travel journalist and author, Mary Novakovich. During this interview, Mary and I spoke about her book, My Family and Other Enemies, Life and Travels in Croatia's Hinterland. The book is part travelogue, part memoir, and it dives deep into the hinterland of Croatia. Novakovich also does explore her ongoing relationship with the region Lika, which is where her parents were from. The book also won the British Guild of Travel Writers Narrative Book of the Year in 2023. You can support the channel by heading over to www.shebsthewanderer.com and hover over to the store tab and click. You can then buy various items from t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, even water bottles and phone cases. If you have any questions, you can send me a message through the contact tab. Without further ado, here's my interview with Mary Novakovich.
Well, yeah, I'm still walking around the big boot. Ankle is still not in a very good way.
How did you sprain your ankle?
Walking in a Norfolk field, it's still not in a very good way. It's still taking a while to heal, but going to London was not the greatest idea.
What about travel-wise? Are you able to travel with the boot on?
My next press trip is on the 10th of September, and I should be fine by then. At most, I might have have it strapped up or something. But no, I haven't got any other trips. I got some big press launches coming up beginning of September. You know, the usual round of all the ski launches that are coming up. But I'm not. I haven't got any trips apart from the next one to Croatia.
How did you first fall in love with travel itself then?
Well, I came to it really quite late. I mean, my first time away from home was when I was 11, and I was shipped off to what was then Yugoslavia for the summer. And that was an eye-opener, and I was incredibly homesick. And I didn't really get a chance to do much traveling after that for quite a long time, for various reasons, and I'm definitely making up for it.
You actually talked about that in your book, which we'll come on to in a sec, but it is your third anniversary as well for the book. Today is your third anniversary. We were talking about this before we came on air as well, so happy anniversary as well.
Thank you.
3 years has gone by. In that time that it's gone by, how has the book done?
Well, it's done well. In fact, I did I finally was able to do the audiobook version of it last year, 2 years after the publication, and I'm still getting emails from people. The ex-Yugoslav diaspora is quite widespread. And I had an American Serbian woman contact me just a few months ago, telling me that she'd found my book and absolutely loved it. And she's spreading it around the entire Baltimore Serbian community and things like that. And having book clubs and talks and things. So it seems it still has a life of its own, even 3 years later.
Just before we come on a little bit more about your book, can you tell us how you actually felt within the travel media itself? What's your background in? Was it in journalism itself, and how did you fall into travel media?
Well, fell into travel by accident, like a lot of people do. As you know, there isn't really sort of a direct way of, there's no real career path. I was at the BBC for years, and then I went freelance in 97. And in 98, I started doing regular shifts at the Independent on Sunday. And having chats with the travel editor at the time, a wonderful man called Jeremy Attia, who unfortunately died very early, in about 2006, I believe. And he was very intrigued by my background, the whole sort of Serbian parents, Croatia, born in Croatia. And he loved the region as well. So he said, you've got to write for me. Why don't you write for me? And I said, well, yeah, why not? So I did my first travel piece for the Independent on Sunday in 1999.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. And it's just gone on from there. I mean, I used to combine it with a lot of other things. because being a freelance, you have your hand in all sorts
Mm,
of pies.
of course, yeah.
And but I've been exclusively travel now for, oh gosh, don't know how many years now, quite a while.
The landscape of travel has changed, and for you, has it been positive? And you're full time, aren't you? Because I think I asked you a year ago. I think you're still full time as a travel journalist.
Yes, unfortunately, unlike other people who've got lovely, very well paid full-time jobs elsewhere and like to do
Mm,
a little bit of travel writing, I'm not in that category. So that's why it's for me, I've been noticing profound changes in travel writing, all down to budgets. People, they don't have the money, they won't spend the money. And a lot of publications, no budget, but they still want people to write for free,
that's correct, yeah.
which not for me, thank you. I've been a journalist for 40 years and I don't intend to start writing for free, thank you very much. It's, budgets are squeezed, people want more for less. I'm getting fees that I got paid 20, more than 20 years ago. They
Mm,
haven't moved and some places they've gone down because they might pay you the same amount, but they've cut the word count and things like
yes.
that. So it's harder and harder. I'd also do a lot of commercial writing within travel, which is the only way to stay afloat, really. So combining advertorial, editorial, commercial, all of that together is what keeps me going. And the good thing about the commercial side of things too is that because I have my speciality regions, namely Eastern Europe, and because I've got such a profound knowledge of that region, I put that to good use for non-editorial writing as well, because I haven't. There are a few people who specialize in the Balkans as well, and those of us who do, there aren't many people who know as much about the region as I and a very select number of people do.
Anyone coming through the industry now, brand new writers, young writers, having a speciality is important, or is that not necessary? You can, of course, divulge yourself in different areas of within the business, but is that something that maybe is going to be more common going forward, or how do you see the landscape of travel?
I think having a niche isn't the be all and end all, but I've personally found it extremely useful. I've also specialised a lot in France over the years,
Mm,
and I still write a lot about France as well, and which is, I mean, Italy as well, another country I write a lot about. And it's having that sort of in-depth knowledge, which I've had editors come to me asking me to write about particular places because they know that I know the countries.
yeah,
And if you have a reputation as a specialist, then you have a lot of people coming to you. And also when I then approach new editors and I say I'd like to write about Croatia, surprise, surprise, for
yeah,
example, and they'll know my name because will see it in a lot of bylines.
of
You put
course.
Croatia, Croatia travel writing, and my name usually pops up.
Which is a great thing, by the way. And your book itself, which is called My Family and Other Enemies, Life and Travels in Croatia's Hinterland. Now, as we mentioned before, it's done incredibly well over the last 3 years, and the impact it's had on people itself. I was actually talking to you about this at an event last week, and what really resonated with me was that your parents came across to the UK, and you grew up in a household not speaking English, because I was a bit like that as well until I first went to school, and your first time when you spoke English was when you went to school as well. So it's a common thing within household of a migrant family anyway. You talk about various different topics, the wars and stuff, but your love for Lika, obviously that's a very that special place in your heart. You talk about your journeys with your family, and you also mentioned, by the way, when you were 11, you went to Yugoslavia and on your own as well. What's been the profound topic that people have asked you more and more?
I've had people really identify with some of the characters I'd written about, some of my relations. My wonderful, sadly now deceased, lovely Uncle Goiko. He was a
That's
a
correct. You
big,
mentioned it, yeah.
big character. He was just so full of fun and life, and he really made all my journeys to Lika over the decades unforgettable and special. And it's that sense of family, food, landscapes,
Yeah.
all of these things, rituals. and just the closeness of family and the importance of that, and also taking part of that with you when you go to different places, even when you haven't got like for example, my parents, my father being a refugee and my mother being and she
Yep.
would have been an economic and probably political migrant at the time, and they've had nothing, brought nothing with them. You
Mm.
know, there are very, very few physical reminders of my parents' heritage. You know, neither of their houses is still up,
Yep.
and that whole area had been through so many wars and a lot of destruction. So that sort of the tangible sides of my parents' heritage, my heritage, they're barely there. And that's why things like all the customs, the rituals, the food, you know, being with family, all these sort of shared jokes, shared history, shared humor are so much more important now more than now than ever. And I think with so much upheaval around the world now, with a lot of refugees and people clinging on to something, the things that made them, and that's become even more sharper and focus, because a lot of people they can't live where they were brought up, they can't live where their family came from, and I find that more and more relevant and more poignant.
Yeah, and you also mentioned the book is about is to celebrate rather than to lament, and a homage to Lika's landscape. And you mentioned your uncle Gokika because you said at the end of the. I don't want to give away too much, but you just said that he passed away. But and you said him, Lika, and the food was what made your journey there every single time. So do you feel as though the readers would grasp that and receive that message?
I think so. I think because it's such an unspoilt landscape, there's only one part of Lika that anyone, the average person, might know about, and that's Plitvice Lakes National
Mm.
Park, which is the oldest national park in Croatia, and it's the most visited one. And I mean, the numbers of people who visit every year, huge. You go beyond Plitvice, and it's completely different. And that's where my parents are from. The you know anywhere but Plitvice. And I think people really relate to the fact you've got these untouched landscapes. A lot of it's to do with, unfortunately, rural depopulation, and it happened before the wars of the 90s started as well. And people love the idea of being in a place where you can just, you know, swim in rivers and you know, hike in the hills and eat organic food because everyone is growing their own food because they've got so much land because you know there's no over tourism apart from Fleet Pizza. Things aren't built up. And I've had people telling me that they you know, say, oh, I could taste that lamb that you've been eating on the spit roast,
Mm.
you know, sitting in this idyllic spot, and yes, it's and you know being in a place where you know, luckily the times I've been there, it's been peaceful because it's been you know years after the wars ended.
Obviously, the war was a big impact, and one of the things I got from it was the population change. And I think you said that the Serbians moving away, the country lost part, a soul.
When the Croatian War ended in August 1995,
Mm.
with a massive, you know, 3-day Operation Storm, and the Serbs, about 200,000, 250,000 rather, people, were essentially driven away, and those who stayed behind were murdered.
Mm.
So they were driven out of the country, and houses torched, their animals slaughtered or just left to die, fields, crops destroyed, scorched earth. Same thing happens. The same thing the Serbs did done to Croatians. Same thing Serbs did done to Bosnians. Unfortunately, and that has then it happened to them, but the people who it happened to, they weren't the ones who they weren't the belligerents. They were just trying to live a quiet life and stay alive. And a lot of them had actually fled in 91 and then eventually were able to come back. But unfortunately, 95, they had to go again. And many never came back. Many found it hard to come back. They tried, they did, but the government wasn't really bending over backwards to help the returnees, and it formed another part of the whole fabric of Croatia. You know, it's not 100% you know Croatian Catholic country. There are pockets of different cultures in there, and Croatia had always been, I mean, it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire until 1918. And, as you know, the empire had dozens of different
Mm,
different cultures and different nationalities within it. The Venetians had it. The French ruled for a very brief period. The Brits were in there briefly. There's no reason why you shouldn't have, particular another nationality in there, and missing that side of the culture, of the landscapes, just the personality. And but I find when I do go back, um, so there are fewer Serbs, but because of there's been a mass emigration of young people from
mhm,
Croatia. And so they've been, because hospitality tourism is such a major part of their economy, they've had to import workers. And initially, they were importing people from former Yugoslavia. So you had a
mm,
lot of Serbs, a lot of Bosnians, Macedonians, Montenegrins, and then some of them think, well, why don't I go off and work in Germany like everybody else, and have a,
yeah.
a decent wage? So they've been importing people from Philippines, from Sri
Mm,
Lanka, from Nepal, and all of this is because people want to go to Croatia, but they haven't got the workforce.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's just another way of how the country's been changing.
There's conflicts and wars and people going through trauma within the parts of the world right now, and so the history is very relevant to today's society and people moving around and stuff. And you also mentioned that the within the book that post COVID anyway, a lot of the Croats have moved across to Germany, as you said, for work and whatnot and stuff, because they just saw it as a way of making more money. And the pandemic also, you mentioned, has had a massive impact on the country itself economically. I've got some Croatian friends, and they said that some of their businesses really suffered. What's it like now for tourism? Has it been picked up since you wrote the book?
Yeah, so the numbers have surged again, and what a few things have changed. One of them is that Croatia entered the euro, the eurozone in 2023, and Schengen. And of course, with the euro came huge price hikes around the
Mm,
same time as rising inflation and cost of living. So prices in Croatia have shot up hugely, and part of it is greed. And in fact, the government at the very beginning was saying we're going to, clamp down these businesses that are gratuitously hiking up
mm,
prices. They didn't, and it's still going on. And I've just noticed ridiculous prices in certain places. Other places, Lika, for example, still a bargain,
mm.
and you can still have a wonderful freshly grilled trout by the river for like €10 or something like that. It's um, and other places you can still find very reasonably priced food and hotels, but other ones have just been taking advantage of the fact that everything is going up. Let's raise our prices too. And then this year, um, they were saying that the figures were quite steady. But I've been a few times, and I'm off again next month. I did notice though that the huge crowds I normally would have seen in June weren't quite as huge as they had been before. It was still busy, still buzzing, but in a sort of really pleasant way, as opposed to, oh my God, there's so many people here, like in Dubrovnik or Hvar town, for example. And it was like, okay, this is a perfectly livable number. And so it'll be interesting when each quarter figures come through to see what they are. Um, because like a lot of other countries, they always want numbers to be going up and up every single year. But
Yeah,
I think at some point you have to put a cap on it because the country's not getting any bigger.
yeah.
There's plenty of illegal building that's going all along the coastline, has been for decades, and they can't concrete over the entire country just so you can get some more hoteliers to make some more money and more private apartments.
Going into the euro itself, because I couldn't quite remember actually. When I went in 2018, I couldn't remember if it was euros or not. But being part of the euros now, is that necessarily a good thing? Because you look at somewhere like Malta, where I've been to, and they said when they went into the euros, it really pushed away a lot of the locals out of Valletta, which is the capital, and it's the prices have hiked and whatnot and stuff. Do you feel as though that it's going to be a problem going forward in the future? And is it something that maybe you want to write about going forward as well within your next book?
Well, yes, plenty of local people, they can't afford to live there. they can't afford to work at the wages that are being offered. Hence the hence the stampede to Germany and Austria and
Mm.
Dublin, a large Croatian community in Dublin. And and it's something that I thought I was just reading just the other day, but they've been trying to clamp down on private building, more apartments being built along the coastline and island coastlines and things like that. And that's and I have been actually been exploring that in my next book. I'm writing specifically about particular certain islands in
Mm.
Croatia and their unique stories. And I have been coming across areas where um, you can see over tourism in action, and others where they've been working very hard to find the right balance. Biodiversity, sustainability. The seas are getting warmer, and overfishing is a problem. They've been working on overfishing in certain places, and but there still are other elements, not particular just Croatians themselves, other nationalities going in and doing other things. But it's something that I think it's in a bit of a fragile state in an environmental way. Local people can't afford a holiday in their own country in a lot of places.
Mm.
They have a very old tradition of having like family houses, weekend houses, and the grandparents' village and things like that. And if those houses are still standing, that's where they go, or they swap with their neighbours. It's their turn to have a week by the seaside and someone's apartment, and bringing all the food from their own supermarket because the local supermarkets they're on islands, and islands, everything, there's a premium on everything because just the physical having to transport it by ferry, and things like that. And it's, yeah, it's harder and harder. And I'm really hoping that I love the place a bit. That's why I go there, numerous times a year. And there's so many beautiful things about it, and I don't want that uh, to get lost.
You mentioned that you're writing your book, and because of the success of the first one, can you give us a little bit more about the timing of when it might come out and what the story is going to be, the main story is going to be about?
Well, I'm still working on the treatment. I'm just finishing up the sort of the sample chapters and the outline and chapter outline, which my agent's waiting for. But at the same time, it's summertime, so nothing is happening in the summer. So they'll be all ready to for him to submit in the autumn. And but as I said, I'm looking at particular island stories, and I've
Okay.
been doing a few both newspaper and radio features that give a bit of a hint, a taste of stories to come. And some of them are um, quite different. Nothing particularly to do with the environment, but interesting stories that came out of visits and research. And I'll give you one example. A couple of years ago, I went to the island of Rab in the Kvarner Gulf. I was doing a feature for the Times, a typical travel feature, and writing about the restaurants, the beaches, the history, the beautiful architecture of the Rab town. And one of the things people go to Rab for is there's an island called Goliotok, and which in the late 40s and early 50s was a notorious prison island set up by Tito for his political prisoners. And it was a horrible place of utter misery. I mean, people just died a terrible slow death in this place, and it's become a ruin. It's completely smashed up, and people, they have boat tours that go there, and I took a tour to see what the place was like because it's one of those sort of dark tourism places,
Mhm.
and it's, I mean, it's a health and safety nightmare. It's just everything is just gaping holes everywhere, and it's also part of the when people take boat tours in neighbouring islands, so have like how they have like a speedboat tour for a day, and you have swim
Mhm.
stops. You stop on an island and go to a beach. That's one of the islands these speedboats go to, and people going there, they have no idea that they're on this island with this incredibly tragic past. They're just sitting there having a swim, thinking, "Oh, ruins around here. Where's the nearest supermarket? No one lives here." And so you've got this strange situation happening on this island. But another thing that came out of Rab is I happened to notice on Google Maps a map pin for a concentration camp on the actual island of Rab. I think that's interesting. So I did some research, and turned out when the Italian fascists During the Second World War, they had occupied the entire Adriatic coast, and they set up several concentration camps, mainly with the intention of ethnically cleansing the Slovenians. And they also, killed a lot of Croatians and Jews as well. And one of them was on this island of Rab. And so I went to visit the memorial park, and some of the political prisoners from Goliotto actually constructed this park, if you can believe that, in the 50s. And then I met a woman who turned out her mother was an inmate of the camp, and she was born there. And so I did a separate report for that for Radio 4 from her own correspondent, because it was such an extraordinary story. And what incredible timing. She was visiting from Los Angeles and, was put in touch with me for the tourist board. She was staying at my hotel. And then the report goes out, and then I get a message from a woman in Italy, in Puglia. She said, "I just heard your radio report about the camp in Rab. I was born there too. Could you put me in touch with the woman you interviewed?" So this is extraordinary. I mean, how many more people are going to be coming out of the woodwork with this? So the three of us then had these incredibly, we were like 3 hours having these Zoom chats with these two 80-something women, with these extraordinary stories about their mothers, and both of them were single mothers, and they were both quite extraordinary women, and both their daughters are so much, having these narcissistic mothers, and so their story is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, that it's just and that purely came up because I was on the island, happened to notice a Google Map pin, and I thought that's an interesting story. You just never know where these things end up taking you.
It's really fascinating, and I absolutely love reading your book. So for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, please go out and buy it. So it's called My Family and Other Enemies, Life and Travels in Croatia's Hinterland. And just before I let you go, because one of the things you mentioned towards the end of the book, again, I don't want to give away too much, but you said your mother was suffering from dementia, was diagnosed with dementia. How is she now? Are you still having those calls?
Yes, yes. I mean, she's 90 now, and her dementia is advanced. She's in a wheelchair. Very well. She has very little mobility, and it's heartbreaking having the video calls that we do have with her, and she's in a frightful state. I've been watching her slowly. I mean, that's not the mother I knew, and it's anyone who has been through having a loved one with dementia will know exactly what I'm talking about. You're mourning them while they're still alive, and that's really quite heartbreaking.
It's been fascinating having you on the show, Mary. I really appreciate your time. So just before you go, how can people follow your travels?
Right. Well, I'm on practically every social media going. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I'm on Twitter, also known as X. Not quite as much though as I used to be, although that I do have my biggest following on Twitter. I'm even on TikTok.
What's the name of the handle? What's your name of the handle?
It's all Mary Novakovich.
Well, Mary Novakovich, it's been fantastic having you on. I really appreciate your time. I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Shebs. It's been wonderful.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button to never miss an episode. And watch all my previous episodes from the show. You can follow me on all my social media platforms. You can also become a patron of the channel and support me on my journey in producing more of these shows. The link is in the description. That's it for Take a Wonder with Shebs. Hope to see you all very soon. Until next time, bye for now.